And we're kicking off with Dynamite, as this week's show saw the Devil make another move and took out another member of the AEW locker room in the process. As confirmed last week, MJF and Samoa Joe were set to face two of the Devil's henchmen, but as Joe made his entrance for the match, the lights went dim and he was surrounded by goons. It appeared that Joe was about to be the victim of a 4-on-1 assault, but that didn't happen as the lights dimmed again and the goons were suddenly nowhere in sight. On the video screen, the Devil watched Joe intently, but while this was happening, a different story happened backstage as MJF was shown laid out with a broken glass bottle next to him. Once again, the Devil orchestrated another attack, this time on the AEW World Champion. But did this sequence of events reveal one of the Devil's henchmen? While the henchmen were masked, one fan on Twitter said their movements resembled Kyle O'Reilly, who had been out of action for over a year after having neck fusion surgery. In response, fans speculated that it could indeed be O'Reilly, and suggested that if his henchman is the former Undisputed Era member, then that could make the Devil himself, Adam Cole. O'Reilly's last match was in August of 2022 when he faced Jon Moxley, and could he have made a return as one of the Devil's flock? Time will tell. Everyone has their theories as to who the Devil is, and that includes MJF, who believes the masked man is indeed an Adam, but not Adam Cole. While waiting for an interview with MJF, Renee Paquette took a moment to interview Hangman Adam Page, and MJF came out mid-interview and recalled some of their past. As they continued talking, Friedman accused Page of being the Devil, and the Cowboy shared his theory that MJF is the Devil, and everything has been an attempt to cover up his identity. It remains to be seen when the Devil will reveal their identity, but with their actions becoming more and more frequent, this may happen sooner rather than later. This week's Dynamite saw Adam Copeland challenge TNT champion Christian Cage, and even before the bell rung, fans expected a screwy finish to set up a rematch at a more high-profile show. That was the case last night, as a finely wrestled match descended into an overbooked mess, which saw a ref bump and Shayna, mother of Nick Wayne, turn heel on Copeland. Cage won with a sickening shot to the neck of his former friend, setting up an injury angle, so in short, the closing moments of this match was a lot. Of course, Bryce Remsburg had to be bumped or distracted to set up Shayna Wayne's interference, but why did she need to be involved at all, and what sense does this heel turn make? After all Cage is said and done to her family, turning someone who isn't even a wrestler heel seems off, and we're sure there'll be some contrived reasoning, but this wasn't what the match needed. At one point in the match, Copeland had Christian caught over the edge of the middle ropes, and he began hitting his chest, similar to the Celtic Warriors' beats of Balrun. Hitting Cage's chest 10 times, this was likely a nod to Copeland's friend and final WWE opponent Sheamus, who played a key role in the then Edge coming out of retirement in 2020. This was a perfectly fine match, but not necessarily on the level of the rest of the show, and was hopefully more an appetizer for what's to come, rather than the blow-off of this feud. If this is indeed their only match, it'll have been a huge disappointment, especially as it's been over 13 years since Copeland and Cage last faced off. Ultimately, Cage had another successful title defense due to interference from Nick Wayne's mom. It seems she chose to forgive her son and do what would benefit him. What do you make of this grudge match between Copeland and Cage? Are you ready for a rematch? Let us know in the comments. Now, CM Punk has certainly proven to be quite the controversial figure in recent years, and ever since his return to WWE, there's been talks about whether this is good for business. Seth Rollins had quite the explosive reaction at Survivor Series to Punk's return, but one of the Architect's allies has no issues with Punk being a superstar again. During an episode of The Bump, Jey Uso was asked about Punk and said he was fine with the Best of the World's return, saying, "Sign CM Punk. Why wouldn't we sign CM Punk? I know he's got a whole bunch of haters or whatever. Hey, if we're gonna be honest, he's a superstar, first and foremost. People talk about him. If we've got anything to do with wrestling, his name is in it. He's like on some tribal chief status. He's a top guy regardless of whatever's going on. So my invitation is open. Bring him. Like, let's run it, bro. I'll be your first one to run with. It's all good. It's all love. Let's go. Let's run it. Welcome back, though, CM Punk." Punk will be on this Friday's episode of SmackDown, and fans are excited to see what's next for him. And what do you think of his comeback? Let us know in the comments. There are some superstars who were around during Punk's first tenure with WWE, including Bobby Lashley, who this week shared an interesting take on WWE's newest signing. Speaking to Steve Fall of Wrestling News, Lashley acknowledged that he was leaving WWE in 2008 by time Punk was really picking up momentum, and said guys who have known Punk have mixed feelings. Lashley then spoke about Punk's MMA career, saying he put money on Punk winning, which didn't transpire, and explained that he hopes Punk proves his loyalty to WWE. He added, "For integrity purposes, I understand he has a big name, he's coming back, and he's gonna do some big numbers, but I hope they make him kind of work for some of the stuff. I hope he's not one of the people that, oh okay, he comes back, gonna win the Rumble, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I hope they give him an opportunity to kind of prove his loyalty to the business and some of the people in there, just to let everybody know, some of the naysayers, some of the people that aren't too happy about him being there. I hope he has his opportunity to work his way back up to the top and not just be given everything, because maybe he negotiated a good contract that allowed him to do that." It's interesting that Lashley wants Punk to prove himself, as it's been reported that Punk could lose his first feud back with WWE to essentially prove he can be a team player and take the loss. But what are your thoughts on Bobby Lashley's idea that CM Punk should have to earn his way back to the top of WWE? Is it a reasonable approach? Let us know in the comments. Earlier this week, it was reported that WWE was ditching the use of the word YEET due to a trademark issue, and during a video, WWE even blurred out the term on Jey Uso's shirt. WrestleVotes were the ones to break the news, saying that the word in merchandising will no longer be associated with Uso going forward, but now there's been a major update. Despite WWE's decision to erase YEET from Jey's character, the shirt still features on WWE's merchandise website, and while it says out of stock, the listing is still there. So what exactly is the problem with YEET? Well, it turns out that the term, at least in wrestling, already has an owner, and that owner is West Virginia's Casey Huffman. Huffman, an indie wrestler, has held the trademark rights to YEET in wrestling since 2021, but WWE are ready to fight for the term. That's according to Bodyslam.net's Cassidy Haynes, who reports that there is a legal claim against YEET and WWE are discussing it. He explained, "I asked sources within WWE about the situation surrounding the YEET trademark and whether the company had completely abandoned the catchphrase in merchandise, and was told that there is a legal claim against YEET. WWE lawyers are discussing it, so there may be hope yet for YEET to stick around, as WWE hasn't completely abandoned it, but has more or less suspended the usage while WWE lawyers discuss all of the company's options." It appears that there is a glimmer of hope that YEET might make a comeback, as WWE hasn't completely thrown it out of the ring, but has put it on hiatus while their legal eagles work their magic. While WWE can't use YEET for now, there's nothing to stop fans cheering that word, and what do you make of this situation? Let us know down in the comments. Back to AEW, and Bryan Danielson has been suffering from an orbital bone injury recently, and during the latest tapings for AEW Collision, it appeared that the American Dragon took another setback. The episode that'll air this Friday was taped last night and saw Danielson face Andrade El Idolo, the same man who Bryan faced when the orbital bone injury occurred. As seen in photos taken by fans, Danielson suffered a nasty cut above his eye and was checked on by medical staff, and this is in the same eye which he suffered the orbital bone injury. While fans have been greatly concerned, there is some good news, as Fightful Select reports that this was a deliberate part of a storyline and that he isn't actually hurt. The report also revealed that the overall mood of AEW officials after the tapings was positive, and they were happy with the quality of matches, and that Danielson will likely be at the upcoming Dynamite. This is great news, as the last thing AEW or Danielson needs is another hiatus due to an injury, and with this being an angle, it seems something is brewing between Bryan and Andrade El Idolo. It was back in September that Endeavor's acquisition of WWE was finalized, and pretty much instantly, it was made clear that Vince McMahon is no longer in charge. Thanks to Ari Emanuel, Vince McMahon is no longer involved in WWE's creative aspects, and it is Triple H who is the driving force behind creative and making calls without his father-in-law. About a month ago, McMahon sold $700 million worth of TKO stock, which is about 25% of his total shares, with some taking this as a sign that he could be exiting the promotion. According to WWE sources who spoke to Sports Illustrated, though, McMahon does not intend to leave TKO, and instead simply needed to convert his assets into cash, hence his sale of stock. As to why McMahon needed to liquidate his assets, that's unclear, but sources confirm that he is staying and still wields significant influence within the organization. Furthermore, it's been confirmed that McMahon's working relationship with Ari Emanuel remains positive, even after Emanuel pulled McMahon from creative and left Triple H fully in charge. Vince McMahon may not be in the position of power he once was, but he still is a powerful name within WWE, and despite his sale of stock, he has no plans to leave anytime soon. It was in March of last year that Bryan Danielson became a founding member of the Blackpool Combat Club, who display toughness whenever they appear, but could they be adding new members? Speaking with DAZN, Danielson dropped 2 names he thinks would be perfect additions, the first being Olympic medalist boxer Anthony Ogogo. Danielson called Ogogo tough as nails, and also name-dropped Hook as a potential member, though acknowledged that he's currently got beef with Wheeler Yuta. Perhaps a feud between Hook and Yuta could lead to respect between the two. And do you think Ogogo and Hook should be members, or should somebody else become part of the BCC? In Continental Classic Gold League action on Dynamite, Jay White defeated Jay Lethal, giving White 6 points in the tournament, while ensuring the only role Lethal will play going forward is that of a spoiler. A good match between 2 guys instrumental in the latter days of ROH, the bout continued a streak of quality in-ring action from the Continental Classic. More from Dynamite as Toni Storm defended the Women's World title against Skye Blue, and after retaining, was interrupted by a former AEW Women's World Champion. After a considerable absence, Riho returned and made it clear she wants the women's title in her first appearance on TV since April of this year. We'll likely see these two face off soon enough, as the inaugural champion hopes to regain the gold from timeless Toni Storm. In the Continental Classic, Swerve Strickland earned 3 points by beating Mark Briscoe, giving Swerve an impressive 9 points to Briscoe's 0. The match served to mathematically eliminate Briscoe from the tournament in another hit to the career of the ROH great. Jon Moxley earned 3 more points in the Continental Classic by winning his match with Rush that kicked off Dynamite. The match elevated Rush even in defeat, as it was the best he's looked in AEW and came across as an equal to the former AEW World Champion. Rush kicked out of the Death Rider, but only lost by referee stoppage, having never actually tapped out to the Bulldog Choke, but rather passing out. There was one spot that didn't sit well with many, however, as Rush hit Mox, who has well-documented alcohol-related problems, in the face with a beer, a hugely inappropriate and unnecessary moment. Moxley continued his streak of dominance in the tournament to this point, so it's no wonder many consider him a favorite to win the Gold League, and perhaps the entire Continental Classic. Each week, Tony Schiavone provides his iconic commentary to AEW Dynamite, but this week's show saw an unfortunate slip-up by the veteran. While commentating, Schiavone stated that the wrestlers fans were watching were athletes in WCW instead of AEW, and this comes after he messed up the name of a move last week. Schiavone was with WCW for years, so it's not hard to see why his brain went on autopilot for a moment, but this is a mistake he'll hope to avoid going forward. As we mentioned, AEW recently taped an episode of Collision, and once again, the show that was once expected to be an equal or superior to Dynamite seriously struggled to attract fans. As seen in video clips shared online, the match with Kenny King, one of the most talented wrestlers in the world, had next to nobody in the crowd, in another poor performance from AEW's newest show. But back to Dynamite, and what did you think of this week's show as the Continental Classic and the Road to Full Gear continue? Let us know in the comments. Later this month, The Iron Claw will release in cinemas across the United States, and it won't be long before fans will be able to find it on various streaming services. PW Insider reports that Warner Bros. Discovery has reached a multi-year pay-phone deal with A24 to bring their film library and new releases to HBO, Cinemax, and Max, so fans won't have to wait long to find The Iron Claw on streaming services. If you watched the original ECW, you may be familiar with the work of Chris Chetty, who is set to make his return to the ring after over a decade. Chetty's last match was at a Pro Wrestling Syndicate Supercard event in April 2013, but Creative Pro announced this week that Chetty will be part of their Frostbite 2 event that'll take place next week. Chetty will be teaming up with Creative Pro founder Brian Myers to take on the formidable duo known as the Birds of the Sun, consisting of Leo Sparrow and GKM. And it'll be interesting to see how the ECW alum fares in the ring. At AEW Revolution 2024, Sting will wrestle his final match ever, and this show will mark 3 years since the Stinger's first match for the All Elite promotion. Clearly, Revolution has a great personal meaning to the WWE Hall of Famer, but Tony Khan originally foresaw Sting's retirement match happening on a much bigger scale. Speaking with the New York Post, Khan explained how he asked Sting about wrestling up until All In 2024 and retiring in Wembley, but the icon didn't believe he could go this long. He said, "He told me as we approached this ticket on sale that he did not believe he could make it another year in wrestling and have the best chance for a happy and healthy retirement. He's doing great right now, and he wants to keep it that way. He plans to keep beating people up and keeping himself healthy. Having Sting retire inside the massive Wembley Stadium would have been epic, but ultimately Khan is letting Sting go out his way, a sign of how much respect Khan has for the icon of pro wrestling. For 18 months, Randy Orton was on the shelf with a severe back injury, which for a while looked like it had retired the Viper, but that was before his return last month at Survivor Series. Now Orton is back and on the Impulsive podcast explained that he doesn't plan on going away now, even if Hollywood comes calling. Orton made it clear that he's not going to Hollywood like other big names in wrestling, especially as his 18-month absence made it clear that wrestling is what matters most to him. The former WWE World Champion also spoke about his RK Bro partner, Matt Riddle, and while the original Bro isn't with WWE anymore, Orton is grateful for their partnership. Orton explained that before his absence, he was in a tremendous amount of pain and appreciated that Riddle took the brunt of the physicality in their matches. He also explained that by the time he left to go get surgery, he couldn't stand for more than a few minutes without serious pain, and also experienced a ton of pain while sitting. Thankfully, Randy Orton is back and the Viper is coming for every member of the Bloodline, and while he's looking ahead, he'll never forget the toughest 18 months of his wrestling career. Since Jey Uso came to Raw, Drew McIntyre has had an issue with the former Bloodline member, as McIntyre isn't ready to move on from what Jey did as part of his family. While Jey didn't cost McIntyre at Clash of the Castle, Uso did plenty to Drew in the run-up to the September 2022 event in Cardiff, and McIntyre believes he's in the right. McIntyre's also been wanting an apology from Uso, and during an episode of The Bump, Main Event Jey issued his apology to the Scottish Warrior. He said, "Hey, look man, I'm sorry Uso, I apologize man. You gotta let that go, don't carry that anger with you all the time. Back in the day, we did some regrettable things to you, Drew. I cost you the World Championship, and we beat you down multiple times. Honestly, Uso, I was just following orders. I was mad too at the time, but you gotta release that anger, man. Let it go. I promise you, your heart will feel lighter. So I'm saying it now. I'm sorry, Drew." It'll be interesting to see if Drew accepts this apology and moves on, but it's unlikely as the two-time former WWE champion is holding a ton of resentment toward the recent Raw signing. On this week's Raw, Uso unsuccessfully challenged for the World Heavyweight title and was put through the announce table by McIntyre post-match. And what do you make of this apology by Main Event Jey? The last time we saw Jack Perry, it was part of the All In pre-show against Hook, and after his backstage brawl with CM Punk, he and Punk were suspended. This week, Perry filed a trademark for the Jungle Boy nickname for merchandise, raising questions as to what's next for the former FTW champion. In a Fightful Q&A, Sean Ross Sapp has confirmed reports from October that Perry is no longer suspended, and we'll have to wait and see when the Jungle Boy is brought back to AEW TV. And we're ending today with Wyndham Rotunda, who died tragically young at the age of 36 this past August due to health issues. Rotunda leaves behind 4 children, 2 from a previous relationship and 2 from his relationship with JoJo Offerman, who shared a tragic update this week. Taking to Instagram, JoJo explained how December 7th was going to be their wedding date and said that she's broken and lost without Wyndham, and that she and the kids miss him a lot. Rotunda's passing came less than a year after his return to WWE in October 2022, and we're continuing to send our best to JoJo and those who knew him at this difficult time.